So,
Where my mouse went. There we go. There we go.
okay, you ready? Oh, Lexi will cut the beginning out. All right. Welcome, Katie. Well, let me start again. Hold on, Lexi. Ready? Hi, Katie. Welcome to my channel today, Quest for Success. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know a lot about you, but just hit the highlights of your career. I know you're newer in the last 10 years. Just tell us where you're at and just a couple highlights, and then we'll dig into your story.
Okay. Good morning. I'm Katie Klenk. I joined as a real estate agent in 2019. I came from the equestrian world, working with our show jumping Olympic team. Jumped into real estate in 2019 and have been a single agent since. I took on a leadership role within my first year in real estate that kind of helped grow my business with referrals within agent referrals. So I got to be pretty involved with large groups across the country and kind of grew from there. So I think, do you want actual numbers and stuff?
No. Just you specialize in, I know, land and some other things. You currently you're kind of building a team. You're working with some assistants. Just talk a little bit about your structure and then just hit on kind of where you're headed, some goals, real quick.
Yeah. First year was part-time. Second year full-time. Third year full-time. I started thinking about needing an assistant in my third year. Third year. So then towards the end of my third year, I had a full-time assistant and then got to the point where I needed more than that. So I currently have full-time assistant and part-time TC help, transaction coordinator that just works for me. It's actually my dad who retired from teaching. So he has started helping me on the business side to keep organized and just keep things on track with where they're supposed to be. So that's been a big help. That has really boosted my business. Just staying involved. I'm happy. I'm in it for the long term, not going anywhere.
All right. So, you don't have to share this, but I know everybody's going to ask. You look young. So how old are you?
I am 31 currently. So I started when I was 28.
Okay. So we get a lot of, I talk to a lot of people that are in their 20s or just out of college or, and so that's always a big question is, can I do this when I'm younger? So take us back to, why did you decide to get into real estate?
So it's kind of funny. I didn't do it for a lot of the reasons that most people do get into real estate. Like I said before, I was in the horse industry. We had a family situation and I had to move home and kind of give up that. I had been working in the area for Bob Kinsley. He had some fox hunters. So I was handling all of his imported fox hunters, keeping them fit and doing that. I was just getting tired. My body hurt. I was sick of waking up at 4 a.m. to be out in the barn. And one of the guys that worked at a local barn drove through one day and he actually flipped properties. And he was complaining to me that he couldn't get his real estate license. He turned to me, he's like, "You have a great personality. You should do real estate." I was like, sure, why not? I'm sick of what I'm doing now. So I went, signed up for the classes, took the classes, walked out of the classes with a 94% on the first try, which apparently after a while I had heard that is not typical. So then I went and just started interviewing different companies, figuring out where I wanted to be. And then about 6 to 8 months after that, I jumped in full time, both feet. Now I did that and it was a gamble because I did not have anything pending at that point and I had not closed anything. And I just said, you know what, if I'm going to make this happen and this is going to be my career moving forward, I've just got to do it. I can't have one foot in and one foot out. I just have to do it. And I will say the minute that I made that decision, the whole business turned around.
Okay. So when you got started, you were part-time. and the way you did your introduction, and we talked about where you're going. Like it seems like everything was just a straight line. It was everything was upwards for you. Was there ever, especially in that first year when you're part-time and you don't have anything under contract and you decide to go full-time, which is kind of sounds crazy to some people. Um, like at what point in that first year, were there times where you thought this isn't going to work for me, or I don't know if I can do this? Did you ever feel like quitting? Was there ever not an upwards trajectory where everything was just going great?
Yeah, there definitely were points. This business can be so overwhelming. And you can just feel like there's so much that needs to be done all the time. I, to me, it was never anything that once I made the decision to be in real estate, I was going to be in real estate. There was nothing else. Now, with that being said, there were times that I got incredibly frustrated and just tired of doing what I needed to do. So I would take a step back and kind of reevaluate why I was feeling that way, and then move forward from there. I know that the 7 circles, I think they're in the book, The One Thing. The 7 circles have really helped me figure that out. I also do this for others. So I find that I fill others' cups before I keep mine full. Um,
So
and
back, let me cut you off because you said you were feeling a certain way. Like what were you feeling? Like what was the
yeah, it was an overwhelming. When I first started, I had a lot of agents that treated me like I didn't know what I was doing, which at the time probably was true, but it's a frustration feeling, and it's a feeling like, well, I need to get the same chances that everybody else has to move forward with it. Um, and when I start feeling that way, I just dig a little bit deeper and move forward with it. Um, and I'm one of those people that if somebody says you can't do it, I'll go and do it another way.
okay?
Um, so I mean, there were times that I was like, what the heck am I doing? This is never gonna work. And I know that COVID hit during that time that my business really started to take off. And it was hard. I mean, it was really hard because I didn't know what to do and nobody around me knew what to do. So I kind of was fumbling through how to make everything work. And then yet I had these people that were trusting me to tell them what to do. And it's a lot on your shoulders, especially when you're younger and you have people in their 40s and 50s transferring their house with you. I mean, it's a big responsibility. And if you aren't confident in yourself and know that you can do it, a lot of a lot of people don't continue with it. Um, I think it's not so much that you want to stop with it, and I think this goes back to funds as well. So like when you get into real estate, you have to have the monetary value to start with it.
Hmm.
And I didn't look at it as a job. This was a career. This is my business. I'm starting a brand new business. There will be bumps along the way, but if I want this business to succeed, I had to get over those bumps and I had to be okay with what was happening and continue to take one step forward. And I think that's where the people that come in and then leave fairly quickly or feel that this is not the business for them, they're looking at it more as an employee mindset and not taking the responsibility and saying, well, I'm feeling this way because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Did that answer?
Yeah, no, I'm just, there's everybody that gets started. Well, okay, I shouldn't say everybody. There's some people that get in, they know a lot of people, and like all of a sudden, or they fall into a certain situation, and that's very rare. And so, and what's kind of weird about realtors and real estate in general is the only thing you see about people is how awesome they are, and nobody wants to talk about the hard parts because to be successful in this business for most people you have to go through tough times and you've got to overcome things and you've got to figure it out and figure out that it's not like HGTV. It's not easy. It's not fun all the time. And, in some cases you want to, you know, jump off a bridge.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
it's boring. It is so incredibly boring,
mm,
especially when you first get started. You think you're gonna go in here and you get to go see all these HGTV houses, and get to do this, and you have people off the bat that want to work with you. And it is a grind at the beginning. Like you sit there and you're calling and calling and calling, and nobody picks up the phone or nobody answers a message. And it's frustrating and it's depressing. Um, and I will say one thing that helped me with that off the bat was there's a book called Go for No. It might be 25 pages long, but it was probably the best book that I could have read when I first started. Um, and it literally said, you are looking for the yes. So go get the no's until the yes shows up.
Yes.
Um, and that helped me understand, as well as you can't please everyone, because I definitely, when I got into the business, I was definitely a people pleaser. And I wanted everybody to be happy with me.
So
And
who's everybody? Are you just talking about clients? Are you talking
everybody,
about agents? Are you like, are you talking
everyone,
about family? Like what? Who is
agents,
everyone?
clients, family. I didn't want anybody to ever be upset with me in any fashion. Um, and somebody told me, so like if I'm dealing with a deal and an agent gets upset and starts yelling at me,
Mhm.
I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. What am I doing wrong? How can I pass that agent? Not necessarily understanding at that point that that agent was frustrated because their client, they were getting pushback from their client, and that had nothing to do with me. I just needed to deal with my client and get through the situation. Um, and that came back to another thing somebody says, was that the only people that truly matter what they say to you are the people that will be at your wedding and your funeral. And those are the only people that you truly need to make happy, to the point, because you're gonna have to go through those hard conversations. Like I have had deals fall through where the seller decided that they no longer wanted to sell. That was a call that I had to make to the buyer. Hey guys, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, we've been under contract 90 days. The seller decided they didn't want to sell anymore. Like those are not fun conversations, especially when you're brand new and don't know how to have those conversations. Um, and those conversations will break people if you don't have the right mindset around it. So it's hard.
So what you said, things are depressing. You said things, I'm sure there's anxiety in there, that's certainly, because how long did it take for you to get paid the first time? Now, I understand you were in a different situation than a lot of people where you didn't have the expenses,
Yeah.
that maybe a family of five might have or something like that. But still, how did you
So
handle that not getting paid and I know you're part-time for a little bit, but go ahead.
yeah. So I was part-time from I got my license and hung it in February 1st of 2019. I was part-time until June of 2019. I then jumped both feet full-time, quit my other job. And I had my first closing in the end of August. I actually think I had two closings August, two closings September, and then I didn't have anything else until February of 2020. So when I had those first closings, I was like, oh, this is exciting. But then I focused so much on those transactions that I forgot that by only focusing on those, I would have nothing in the future. And then it got to the point where I didn't have anything, and I was panicked because I'm like, oh my God, what do I do now? I've closed stuff, but I don't have anything to work on. And that's where the boring comes in. Like it is boring. It is depressing getting all of those calls. You go to open houses, you continue to do what you are supposed to do, and nothing is coming from it. And that is something that I see agents, they get frustrated and frustrated and frustrated, and they
Hmm.
don't just give it the time that it takes, because it takes time. So I mean, it was that 7 months before I got my first paycheck. Um, yeah, I mean,
Well,
it,
you talk about the boring, and I forget. I can't never remember what book I read or who said what, but there's the principle of like if you get really, really good at the boring, mundane, repeatable things, you hear about it. It's like okay to do in sports. Like, oh, you want to get really good at this technique or this thing, you just repeat it over and over again correctly.
yes.
But in business and in life, it's like this sucks. This is terrible. This is boring. Um, And so what were those things that were most boring to you? I know the depressing part's like, oh, I don't have any money. The anxiety is, oh, I don't have anything in the pipeline. what is it? Because you're really, really, and you're really good and consistent now based on
Yeah.
everything that I've seen in the last few years. But in the beginning, what was the boring stuff, or what was the repeatable things that you were doing or that you didn't do and then started doing again?
Yeah. So, and these are things that even today I go back to and I'm like, oh, shoot, I don't have business. I need to go do that again. And it was, I would come in the afternoons and I would sit down and I would make phone calls. Um, and half the time, none of those people would pick up, and they would pick up and they wouldn't answer, or they wouldn't be interested, or I would get screamed at, yelled at, all of that kind of stuff. Um, but I made it a game. So like I would do an open house on the weekend. I would have all those contacts and they would be put into um, piles. Monday, I would call them and leave a message. Tuesday, I would send them a text message. Wednesday, I would call them and leave no message. Thursday, I would send them a text message. Friday, I would call them and leave a message until I heard from them. Um, and again, it's boring, but then, and it's the same thing. Like, and that was something that I did too. So when I started, I would go in to the office, even if I didn't have anything to do. I would go in and I would sit there and just absorb and listen to everybody else and what they did and what the practices were, and the phone calls that they were making. And that allowed me to start having the language and feeling comfortable, especially with, you get to the point where you make so many phone calls and you're making the phone calls and you're leaving the messages and you start having fun with it, being like, well, if I twist this word and say this, so it's monotonous, but at the same time, you can kind of have fun with it. So that was one thing. Another thing was your schedule. Your schedule is so important. Um, and when I went full time, I am very much somebody that has to be in the office to get stuff done. And I made it priority to go into the office. This is my business. Any other business person goes to a business, or yeah, goes into the office. They
Right.
don't work from home. They don't do stuff. And that's where, like, you have to have the mindset of what you want from it coming into real estate. Do you want it for being a business? Do you want it because you're a part-time mom? Do you want it for extra money on the side? Or are you making a career of this? And I think you have to treat it based on that. Because if you're a part-time mom doing it, you're already doing the things that you need to do. You're doing PTO, or PTA, you're going to all the sporting events, and you just have to start talking about it. Um, and again, that's boring, and you don't think anybody wants to hear about it, but it's integrated into a part of your life. Um, yeah. So
So you now, you and I are similar in a way in that I feel like our careers didn't get started until we took a certain class, until we got the certain amount of training. Because there's a lot of people that I talk to that are in real estate. Like I meet with them, they've been in real estate for a year or 6 months, and they're like, I'm not getting anywhere. I don't even know what to do. Um, and so I know you took a particular class, with a certain company. Like, what are some of the activities? And because these are the boring, monotonous activities you're talking about, right? Like, this is where you learned them from. It wasn't like you came in, got your license, and you're like, oh, I know what to do. And so you had to learn those things. And I think that probably some people that are watching would like to know, like, what exactly, you talked about open house, you talked about phone calls, but what are some of the things, especially as a newer agent, you have zero business, what are some of the things that you were taught to do that you just, and by the way, Katie just does it. Like, if we tell her this is the way to do it, she's like, okay, and she puts it on her calendar, she does it religiously, for the most part. That's where I attribute, when I tell stories about you, I attribute your success to the fact that you're like, okay, well, this is how I run my business. I'm going to set it, create the schedule. Like, I literally couldn't meet with Katie because she's like, yeah, my lead generation time is off the table. And the only time I had available to meet with her was during her lead generation time. Otherwise we would have done this a long time ago. But that's what makes you special. Even amongst the top agents in the country, is most people will do what it takes to be successful in the moment and then slack off. And I know you've done it at times, but for the most part, you're
We all have.
super consistent, and that's allowed you to, Katie that mentioned that, she's buying her first investment property, she bought her first house. Um, she's building this team and she has so much business that she's hiring assistants because she needs to, and that also allows her to grow her business. This isn't like, I see some teams or I see some agents out there that have a good first year in COVID because COVID was crazy and business was kind of easier then. And then they go, oh, well, I'm awesome. I'm going to go build a team. And, I could go on and on about the problems with that, but you've been super consistent. So back to my original questions, because I talk too much. What are the things that you were taught that I think people will be interested in knowing that are the boring things that you had to do consistently to build your business and to maintain it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that I attribute it to is to my CRM. So they said, here's the CRM, put all your people in it, and that's how you keep track of everything. And that's so boring. And I know that a lot of new agents push back and are like, what's the point of doing this? But as you get bigger, you realize that the boring aspect of entering each of your contacts in with their phone number, email address, and physical address allows you to do so much in the future with that. And then it allows you to know when you contact them, when you need to contact them, what's going on with them. That is a boring thing that I always get pushback from new agents now. And they're like, I don't want to do that. Another boring thing is, and I don't necessarily think that this is boring, but I would a lot of times sit down with agents that were currently in the business and just say, how's business? And they would start talking to me about different things, and they would ask me the same questions, and I would start learning from them what they were doing and saying, okay, well, if that's succeeding, maybe I'll go try that. Not to the point that, hey, this person does really well on social media, they do videos, I'm going to go do that and do well with that. It was the more mundane things, like I make calls Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I call for sale by owners on Tuesday. I call expireds on Thursday. It's the little things. It's not the big flashy. I don't do much on social media. That was the first thing that I referred out. My first admin, that was her main duty, was social media, because I hate it. But I know how important it is. But that's not where I thrive. So that was something that I didn't do for the first 3 years. It's the boring things. Like they told me open houses are good. I still to this day like open houses. Doesn't matter what kind of open house it is. I've gotten some of my best clients from little $90,000 townhouses that I went and sat in the middle of a snowstorm. Like just what else are you going to be doing? Like, fill your time up with stuff that you know will eventually benefit you in the future. Live in the boredom. Phone calls. I know something somebody told me was Facebook is a great lead generation source, but when I started, I had nothing to do. Nobody knew me on Facebook. I had Facebook, but the business part of the Facebook, nobody knew. So I went through all of my friends, and I think it's like 15 or 20 people you can private message in a day. Private message them, hey, I'm in real estate. If you ever need any help, feel free to reach out. I have not done that since I was a new agent, and I will tell you that I'm still getting people reaching out with questions. And I will look back and be like, well, they never even responded to my message. But it's those boring things that you think aren't working when you're doing them that will roll in the future. And I always laugh. I use this analogy. It's a dung beetle. So like you're rolling your ball of dirt around, and you are getting nowhere. And then all of a sudden it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it's so big that you need help. And that's kind of how I see the real estate business, because it's year over year. You have to put the time in to be able to get the results.
Dung beetle. Okay. Katie Klenk, the dung beetle method.
You see it though, right? It makes sense.
Clank. Did I say clunk? Did I really say clunk?
You're okay.
Oh my. So, it's funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking about an agent that was brand new that just said, I'm doing video and YouTube and created a channel and is out of the business. I met with an agent out in California a couple weeks ago, and she said, I don't want to do this level of volume because I barely make any money on it. And then I got to pay a referral fee. It's like, it just, and when we hear these all the time, when you're talking to new agents that get out, there's always a reason, but it's ultimately because they don't want to do the boring things, or they want to do the exciting, flashy things. And ultimately that leads to failure in real estate.
I mean, people have done it before you. Figure out what they're doing that's consistent and why they've done so well for so long. And then once you get to that point, then add the flashy on top. You can't build the business by being flashy, because people don't see the work that goes in the background of it.
Well, and there's the long-term effect too, right? Like, this is your dung beetle analogy, I guess. Like, I just had somebody call me yesterday that I haven't talked to in like 17 years. Didn't even know their name was still on my phone. Didn't even, I wasn't sure if they paid attention to Facebook. And, so I'm going to go check out his place. Lives a couple states away. But like, and he's like, oh yeah, I saw you doing this. I saw you doing this. I saw you doing this.
People pay attention.
So,
I just sent out an email for, I've had my CRM, my database for since 2019 now, and I just sent out an email for a database audit. And I said, hey guys, just wanted to follow up, wanted to make sure I have the best information for you.
mm-hmm.
I literally have had people that I didn't even know were in my database reaching out to me and being like, hey, I forgot about this. Can you help me with this? Like, oh, it's not the flashy things that will get you business.
That's
It's the
exactly right.
consistent follow up and saying, just like poking. You have a brother or a sister and you just continue to poke them, poking. You're eventually going to get a response. That's kind of how I see real estate.
So let's talk about, so we have some time left. So let's talk about goals and goal setting. Did you have goals when you got into real estate, or is that something that you were taught to do? I vaguely remember, and with some people that I meet with, I don't know them as well as I know you. I vaguely remember a point where you struggled with goals. Am I remember that correctly? And it was a kind of a big breakthrough for you. Could you talk a little bit about why because you didn't really set goals, or you were afraid to set goals? Talk about the beginning, and then how did you make that change, and why did you decide or how'd you get out of that?
I have always struggled with setting goals. And one of the big things was I moved a lot. So I never knew what was going to come around the corner. I have had a lot of large life events happen. And because of that, I'm always worried they always tell you to set 1, 3, and 5-year goals.
Right.
Like the closer goals are easier for me to set. The long-term goals are harder for me to set, because in my head, I'm always thinking, not that it can't happen, but what are the things that are going to cause that goal to no longer be important to me? And why would I even aim for it? Because so many things could happen between now and then that would change what that goal would be. So I very much struggled with that. And another thing that I struggled with was, in real estate, they always want you to set a volume goal as to what you want to make your first, your second, your third year. And I struggled with a long time for this, because I don't know if anybody in the equine industry knows the equine industry, but you don't make any money. I was making enough money to pay my student loans. They provided me housing. So I made enough money to cover my student loans and get food. And I was happy. I was doing what I loved. So
and you were staying at home, right? You were still at home with your parents?
So I had moved home at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But prior to that, so I went to college. I did all of that. I worked 3 jobs in college to pay off student loans, got out of college, had a job that I loved, but didn't make any money. And then I get into real estate. And I still remember this, my pre-licensing class, she went around the class and asked everybody how much they wanted to make their first year in real estate. So I think there were like 26 people in my second pre-licensing class. And most people are like, we want six-figure digit income and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And it finally got to me, and I stood up and I said, I want to make $15,000 my first year. The whole class erupted into laughter. And I was like,
Oh
well,
my word.
why, why would I want to make any more? Like, if I make $15,000, covers my bills and means that I can continue the next year. And I remember the instructor coming up to me and being like, if you don't make $15,000 in your first year, you need to come talk to me. My first year came around, Rick, I made $15,700 my first year. Guess what? How many of those 26 people do you think are still in real estate?
Well, the odds are maybe one or yeah.
There are two of us. Two of us. So like you have to be realistic about what your expectations are and your goals. Now with
Well,
that being said,
or if you set, if you set a higher goal, you might have hit a higher goal. Like
very true.
there's that part too. But
And that is
continue your
something
story.
that I have learned, and that has been a ceiling that I've had to work on moving forward and understanding. At that point, I didn't understand the value of money. I did not. So now that I do, I understand that money can allow you other things. So my goals have grown based on what I want to do or what I want to provide for other people. So it's not
So
just what I want.
I mean, it's a crazy story, really. Like I know it's your life, but I look at it and go from $15,000 a year to six figures plus plus plus, and that you got, like I said, to come from that to you got your own house, you got investment property, you're building a team, and I know you have other bigger goals, and the way that you operate and the way that you work, you're clearly going to get there. But so how do you set goals now? Like, what's the difference?
So now I don't base it on how much I want to make a year. It's what I want to do.
Mhm.
Um, and then I work backwards from that. So say my goal now is to travel every month. So how much is it going to cost me to travel every month? How much do I need to spend on the business to be able to continue to run it? And then add those two things up, and that's my goals for the year, monetarily wise and unit wise. And then I break it down into how much commission I get per unit and go from there. And I think that leads me to another point in that you have to have the people surrounding you that are in 100% support of you. So like I wouldn't have been able to grow through that without the mentor that I had, without the tax accountant and financial advisor, and figure out how to do those goals. Because not everybody does goals the same. Some people like to base it on units. Some people like to base it on volume. If you're super competitive with everybody else,
Mhm.
base it on that and grow to that, because you're going to push yourself. I'm competitive with myself, not so much with everybody else. So I need to set the goals based on that. So that's kind of I've learned more about myself and the kind of goals that I need to set for myself versus what everybody tells me I need to be setting.
So I like to ask this question for people that have achieved goals, that keep setting new goals, because there's this constant encouragement, I will say, in business in general, is what's next, what's next, what's next. So do you feel like you're successful?
Where I am right now with what I have,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you feel like you're successful? So then
Yes.
what drives you to go to the next step or to the next level? If you already, because there's two ways it can go. You could say, yeah, I've achieved something, but I still don't feel successful, because there's the next level.
Yep.
But people that if you already feel successful, then what's making you want to, success is success, right? So being more successful, what does
It's
that push come from?
it is life. So life is always changing. So the general progression, and I'm making gross assumptions here, but
Okay.
you're born, you have different goals of when you're 1, 2, 3
Mm-hmm.
than when you get into school. And then your goal when you're in elementary school is to get to middle school is to get to high school, you either get a job or you go to college, and then you get a job. And then at the job, you look at the personal side of it. What are the job growths that you want? What are the personal side? Generally, people get married, have kids, the kids start going to school, stuff like that. So my goals are never going to be the same. Thus, or I'm sorry, my life is never going to be the same because it's a constant progression. I'm never going to be in the same place twice. Thus, my goals are never going to be in the same place because things might change. It's like the river analogy. You are always in the river, but you're never in the same place in the river. And that's kind of like, I am successful today. Yes, I am happy with what's been going on today. Tomorrow, something huge could change, and that would change the goals that I would want to aim for.
But aren't you going to get tired of swimming at some point?
I'm
Do you
sure,
ever
but
think
you got
about that?
to plan for it.
So what's your plan? Like at what level or what point are you like, I'm done swimming?
When I'm tired of it. And that's, but I have to always plan that retirement is around the corner. So plan retirement now because you know it's coming up at some point. My life is not infinite. So
Yeah.
I know that there are people that once I'm gone, I know that there are people that I want to make sure that they're okay. I know that I don't always want to be doing the grind. I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. anymore and be in the barn for somebody else's purpose. Thus, I have to figure out a way that I can insulate myself for that moving forward. Now, with that, again, really good financial advisor, really good tax accountant. I just started my solo 401k, and we're working on how much I can put into that every year to max it. So that way, when I'm ready, I'm ready. Same thing with the investment properties, like it'll be there for the passive income. Now, with that, I also love to help people. So I don't know. It's also hard because I've never been a W-2 employee. I've never seen work as something that you actually just have to do. It's something that I've always enjoyed. I've always chosen stuff that I enjoy to do. So asking me when I want to be done with it, I'll probably go and find something else I enjoy at that point in time to go do.
So
It's just
even
probably as I grow older, it's going to be more expensive to do what I want to do.
so even with though, we talked about boring things and you're doing these things that you don't like, they're boring, yet at the same time, you do enjoy the business. Like, how do we balance that? Because I hear you say, I hate this part or it's very boring. And but now we're saying, well, I love it. And I don't think I'll ever stop doing it because I love it so much. And look, I get it. This is not you're going to hit points, life changes. Maybe you have kids or, things happen or physical things happen. And like things do change and goals. I get all that. But there are a lot of people that even if they enjoy what they're doing from a job perspective or from an income perspective, would you, if you didn't have to, if you had $1 billion sitting in the bank, would you still get up and do this? Like and maybe the answer is yes. Oh, the answer is no.
No, probably not, because I would go do something that I wanted to do that I wasn't able to do now. But the point is what I'm doing now will lead me to what I want to do.
Okay. And have you already identified that, or you just know that it's going to come in the future and you're preparing?
It is going to happen one way or another as long as I make it happen. If I don't think about it, it's never going to happen. So you're going back to doing the boring and what you don't like. A lot of agents don't like doing their taxes. That's one of the most important things to do as a business owner. And yet people don't do it because they don't like it. So then they owe money and they can never do the things that they need to do to be able to get to where they want to be. So it's kind of like that. I mean, it's just, you have to change your mindset. You are a business owner now, and maybe the business grows so big that you can step out and go do what you want, but you still have the income coming in from it. Or maybe you're just your single agent and the whole goal is to do it until you don't want to do it anymore, or you're monetarily set. but always figure out a way that it can afford you something better by what you're aiming to do.
Yeah.
Is today making my life better for tomorrow?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's hard for, especially when you're younger. I think that's hard for a lot of younger people, especially if they don't have responsibilities, if they're, they
This
don't have a significant other they're helping to support, or they don't have the children, or they don't have parents maybe that are in an age yet where they've got to handle those sorts of things.
I think it all comes back to the generational differences too that we see. And I know that the current generation that's entering the workforce up until their 30s and I see it in agents too, they want things now. They don't work on things for the long term. They don't realize that by giving up things now, they will get things in the future. And I'm not saying that the best way that I could.
I mean, I think that about your generation. So,
Well, then that's
I'm
what, like,
I'm hearing this from you, and
I'm
I'm stereotyping you with everyone else in your
I'm
generation.
part
So
of that
I'm like,
generation
wow,
though.
okay.
I'm part of that generation, and I know that. But the circumstances that I've been through have shown me very quickly, very early on,
Right.
that if I give up things now for the long term, that I'm going to be better off down the road, and I'm not going to have to worry about what I worry about now.
Right.
And I see agents wanting now, and giving up the long term. And then when the long term comes, they're frustrated because they don't have it, because they didn't do what they needed.
Yeah.
And I definitely see this business as a long-term situation. You have to be willing to play the long game. And if you want the flashy, if you don't feel like doing the boring, this is most likely not the business for you.
That's right. That's exactly right. We should end right there, but I have to ask you one last thing. What do you wish you knew when you first got started in real estate?
I wish I would have known to just keep going with the monotonous. Nobody tells you you're doing a good job when nothing is happening. Good jobs always come when you close your deals, when you have something tangible to hold on to. It goes back to the flashy. When you post something on Facebook, that's when the good job is said. I wish more people understood and said good job to those people that were doing the boring, the monotonous that led to the things. And I wish that was something that I understood and was talked about more at the beginning. I also wish I had known that this is you treat it like a business, not I'd be a lot farther along if more people treated it like a business rather than a job.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to end right there because that's probably the greatest clip that we can pull out. But no, that's exactly right. And that's, I've always been impressed by your trajectory because you've done the boring and the monotonous and been scheduled about it, and for the most part been unwavering and committed to doing those boring things, because most of us, myself included, if we have an opportunity to not do those boring things, like I have it scheduled, but oh well, a lunch date came up, or oh well, you know what, I needed to call a client and take care of this. Like most people will jump on the opportunity to skip the monotonous and the boring, which is,
you're giving me too much credit.
well, you don't understand the amount of people that I've talked to and coached. Like, I'm giving you the right amount of credit. It just doesn't feel like it because you're the type of personality that you're like, I could have done better. And that's part of why, I'm sure that's why you have the drive and you're able to get past the negative and those things and the boring. But most people, telling you, they're doing a tenth of what you're doing, even if you don't think yours is super great. So
gotta keep grinding.
But hey, well, thank you very much. Look, I appreciate your time. I'm glad we finally were able to get together on this. And
Of course. Thank you. I appreciate this.
No, it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy it. So
So,
take care. Thanks again, Katie.
have a good one.
All
Thanks.
right.
Bye.
All right. So she'll end it. She'll end it right there.
Okay.
Was that good? Do I need to cut anything out? You're comfortable with it all?
No, I think it was good. Are you happy
cool.
with it?
Yeah, I love it. It's
okay.
This is important. Like the stuff, for it to be like when I first did probably the first couple I did, it's hard to if I know somebody really well. It's almost better if I don't.
Yeah.
The first couple, I found myself trying to like get to a point. Like I want them to tell about this. I want them to tell about this. And I realized that's like not good. Like I'm just going to ask questions. I'm going to let them take it where they want to take it. And I think that that's more, it becomes more authentic and real. And, um, that's because if I'm pushing you to an area and then what happens if you don't say necessarily what I was hoping you would say, or so I just get to relax and listen. And there's always things that I didn't know, which I think
Yeah.
which is cool for me. And, and when I do that, everybody says things that people that are new to the industry or thinking about getting in, they're like, oh, there's going to be eye-opening things for them. So that's the
Yeah.
important part. And you get a chance, check out the channel.
Yeah.
It'll probably be a month. I guess I can stop recording. It'll probably be a